The universal method for saxophone. The exercises of a mechanism have for their object the formation of the fingering by habituating each finger to act separately or simultaneously. By these exercises may be acquired that equality of fingering and that purity of tone which are... Hi friends, I'm the Saxophone Oracle, and this week what I wanted to talk about is how we can bring some creativity to our technical practice, right? Working on our technique, our scales, our arpeggios, all the technical aspects of playing, right? So there are tons of books like these, etude books, books about patterns, technical things, and they're cool. They serve their purpose, right? Especially when we're first starting out, we need more guidance. We need to learn how to play a scale. We need to learn the very basic things. But in general, I'm not a really big fan of these books. And to be honest, I've hardly ever used them because I think they're a little bit short-sighted. I mean, they do address certain technical things and you work on sight reading a bit, but we're missing so many other important aspects of our practice. And our practice time is precious. So we've all heard the expression to kill two birds with one stone. Well, I think when we're practicing, we need to be killing a flock of birds with one stone, right? We want to take care of so many things at one time, well, as many things as possible, right? So we're maximizing our practice time. And by playing etude books, etc., we're not bringing our ears really into play. We're not bringing our theoretical learning into play. We're not working on transposition. And we're not really using our creativity. I mean, we're improvising musicians or just musicians in general. We're creative. So we need to exercise that creativity as well. And I think for those of us who've been playing for any amount of time, a year or more, we probably don't need anything. We encounter in everyday musical problems in our band music, or we can, take any piece of sheet music from the classical repertoire, our improvisation, certain chord patterns. We're going to find problems. If we just improvise for a minute or 2 minutes, we're going to come across all kinds of things that we technically cannot do. So why not isolate them, make our own exercises with them, and be creative about it? Right? And then who knows what we're going to find? We'll probably discover new sounds, new possibilities. And by doing it this way, there's also the incentive of we're coming up with it ourselves, we're putting in the time, we're taking care of the technical problem, but how can we apply it now to the music we're playing as improvising musicians? So I think it's really valuable to learn to come up with our own creative technical exercises. Okay, so scales, for example. I have this book that someone gave me for flute scales and arpeggios. And you literally open the book and first they have it written out in 2 octaves, then the same scale in 3 octaves, then the arpeggio in 2 octaves, then in 3 octaves, then the 7th chord. And it's just I fail to see how this is necessary, right? If we have the understanding of how a major scale is, how it sounds and how it's constructed, then, I think we can get rid of this as soon as possible and start using the rest of our brains. So for the rest of this video, I think I'm just going to try and come up with several examples off the top of my head of very basic musical situations and just some way of either making it more challenging or making it more interesting, or different ways we can go about approaching very basic material. Major scale, we can all do it, hopefully. So what if we, for example, start on the root, go up 5 notes, then go to the 2nd scale degree, go up 5 notes, go to the 3rd, go up 5 notes. Right? We've all done it in thirds. Do, da, do, da, do, da, da. Well, what if we did it in fourths? Or in sixths? So that's something to think about. How about the chromatic scale? We can all play the chromatic scale, and then all of a sudden that's easy. Well, what can we do to make it more interesting? How about we descend? So we come down 3 notes, go back to the top note, and then come down the next 3 notes. How about we start at the bottom, go up 4 notes, jump the octave, come down 4 notes, and then transpose it up by semitone. Right? All of a sudden, it's more difficult. So, okay, let's spend some time working on that. Arpeggios, right? How many of us just play our arpeggios starting on the root, going up and back down? Well, what if we started on the 3rd of the, instead of going, what if we go, or we just keep going up? Right? I made an Instagram post the other day. Remember to practice your scales going up and going down. So arpeggios, minor 7th chord, descending from the 7th. How about something as simple as a single interval? So a major second. So, you know, of course we could just play them back and forth. And see that they're even. But then perhaps let's do that. Let's play a major second and then transpose it up a 5th. Simple enough. Then let's do that pattern of a major second up a 5th, and then transpose the whole thing up a tone. Right? All of a sudden, that's kind of an interesting sound. Maybe we can use that somewhere. What if we do it the same thing going down, the exact same thing, but let's make it descend. Interesting. What if we do it ascending again and then transpose it by major 3rd? That sounds pretty hip to me. And then maybe I can find a place to put that over a chord sequence or a single chord or who knows what. But all of a sudden, you know, we have something we can add to our repertoire while working on the technical exercise, working on the transposition, hearing new sounds. What next? Diminished scale. So we know there's the whole half, the half whole. We could do it in 3rds. What if we did it, I mean, it's based on a diminished chord. So what if we did it as approach tones? So the lower neighbor going up, you know, from below the chord tone, then we skip up to the 5th, the flat 5, and then we go down to the flat 3 and do approach tones. Or we do a similar thing with enclosures. So we approach it from below, jump up to the tritone, the flat 5, and then do an enclosure around the 3rd, and then transpose that up, right? That's pretty interesting, right? And technically difficult, and maybe we can apply that. Large intervals, so approach it and then then go up a 7th. I mean, that's a common thing we hear Pepper Adams do a lot. Oh. All right. So just if we literally spend 10 to 15 seconds thinking about a simple thing that's giving us a technical problem, we can come up with so many different possibilities that we can be continually working on. So I did a video recently called Arpeggio Bootcamp, and in that I gave an example of an exercise I like where I play the arpeggios of the major diatonic system. So I'll do this with a metronome to show like we can add a rhythmic element. So I'll do it. This is 8th notes, right? The next logical thing is probably to do it as 16th notes. Let's do it faster, right? Well, what if we do it in a group of 3, like triplets? Let's try that again. So I'm not sure I was even doing that right. I have to sit down with a metronome and isolate it slowly. But all of a sudden that brings a whole other aspect to it, right? Because we're fitting a 4-note pattern into 3, or we could do it in groups of 5 or whatever. But there's so many things we can do just with the basic materials we have. What if we talk about, like here's one I like. We see this in the Patterns for Jazz book. We hear Coltrane play it all the time. The 1, 2, 3, 5 lick on giant sips. Right? So we often practice that around, say, this cycle. Well, I mean, we could do it by semitone. We could do it by, say, minor thirds, like what happens in Countdown, instead of giant steps, which is major thirds. Right? And the reason I picked that example is there were these great books that Jerry Bergonzi put out a long time ago. And in one of them, he just talks about the possibilities with that cell of 4 notes, 1, 2, 3, 5. So if we just say one key only, so the key of C, there's like 16 possibilities of how we can arrange those notes. 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 5, 3, 1, 3, 2, 5, 1, 5, 3, 2, you know, and then starting off with the 2nd scale degree. Right? That's just starting off of 1. Then we can start off of 2, 3. So, man, it's limitless if we just think about it. And believe me, you add just a little tiny bit of difficulty and all of a sudden you have another week's worth of technical work. And you're going to stumble across really hip sounds that are unique to you, you know? Sure, it's great. We go to a book and it can give us inspiration or things we haven't thought about. So I wouldn't, don't throw out the books altogether. But we're creative musicians, so let's use all our brain and really maximize our practice time, right? Ears, transposition, theory, technique, breathing, doing everything with a metronome, right? We're killing a flock of birds with one stone. I'm the Saxophone Oracle, and that's what I wanted to talk about this week, how we can bring some creativity to the technical aspect of our practice and get the most out of our precious practice time. So I hope you found the information useful. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any cool technical ideas, things you've come up with, share them with me. If you have comments or questions, please drop them below or reach out to me by email. I'd love to address them in any future videos. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all happy practicing. Bye for now.